In this series, I want to take you on a tour of Greater Manchester and the surrounding counties, looking at the secrets behind community radio stations. I say community because these are the more unique, truly local, for the most part, radio stations that so far have managed to evade amalgamation with the big corporations. This means we won't really be looking at local radio as such, although there is a crossover. Basically, stations that are now part of Heart, Capital, and Greatest Hits and the like will not be getting a mention. The main focus of this series, of course, is the infrastructure behind the stations, mainly the transmitter sites and the various studio to transmitter links that are employed, more of which I'll discuss soon. So you join me at the start of this tour in Wythenshawe. Wythenshawe is 8 miles or 13 kilometres to the south of the city of Manchester and is the southernmost district of Manchester. It's before 9 AM and already temperatures are rising on what turned out to be the hottest day of the year so far. The atmospheric disturbance even at short range is clearly visible, but that doesn't stop us getting a view of Manchester Airport's control tower 1.6 miles away to the southwest. If you look closely, you can see the reflection of a wing and a shadow in the tower's glass windows. That's a Turkish Airlines A321neo from Istanbul taxiing to the gate. The shopping precinct sits within one of Europe's largest council estates and is home to Wythenshawe 97.2 FM. Wythenshawe FM is a community radio station that operates from Wythenshawe Forum in Forum Square. It's run entirely by volunteers who live and work in the area. The station began broadcasting on the 25th of May 2000 when Radio Regen, an organisation I've covered in the Buzz FM pirate radio documentary series, link below, had started running a course where participants could obtain a BTEC qualification in radio production. Jason Kenyon, Dave Lenigan, Billy Barclay and Richard Jameson, as part of the course, put together a community radio station that would run for just 4 days. On the 25th of February 2001, they broadcast for 7 days, and on the 6th of October 2001, they broadcast for 2 weeks. In April 2002, Wythenshawe FM was back on the air for 12 months, and eventually it was outputting 125 hours of broadcasting per week. In 2005, the station applied for a 5-year community radio licence as part of the Radio Pilot Project for community radio licences. By 2010, it was an independent entity after 10 years of support and management under Radio Regen. Today, Wythenshawe FM has over 100 active volunteers, presenting and producing a range of shows including talk shows, specialist music, foreign language, and shows aimed at specific communities. In late 2023, Ofcom awarded Wythenshawe FM a DAB licence, and it joined the Stockport Multiplex, which covers South Manchester, parts of Tameside and High Peak. A link to a video on this multiplex can be found in the description below. Let's take a look at the transmitter site first. The transmit antenna sits on top of Edwards Court, just 450 metres away from the Wythenshawe FM studio. This is the place where the station radiates from. The antenna is 30 metres above ground and the site itself is 60 metres above sea level, and you can see from the coverage map that the 50-watt transmitter is doing the job nicely from here, with great coverage across large parts of South Manchester and into East Cheshire. As you can see, there's a few antennas up here, but the Wythenshawe FM antenna is the one on the right, the third one along. The other two I can't be sure on, but I'd guess they're council or social housing related. The studio to transmitter link in days gone by was a horizontal dipole that supported a band 1 VHF STL on 52.75 MHz, but today it's sent over this small microwave dish. This link sends the feed from the studio up to the transmitter, usually a more optimal location to provide the best coverage possible. As we progress through this series, you'll see some of the different types of on-air and off-air studio links that are in use. Now, I found my first problem here. I couldn't for the life of me find the reciprocal microwave dish on the Forum building where the studio is located. I spent a good hour scouting the buildings and rooftops and couldn't find it. I even stood in the path of the link staring directly into the centre of that dish, but being so close to the airport and not being able to send a drone up, I was stumped. The one at the transmitter site is angled towards the Forum building, so it's definitely the receive from the studio. It's likely that the reciprocal antenna is a dish identical to the one at the transmitter site, and the link probably runs on 5.8 GHz, but I just couldn't find it. The studio is located here inside the Forum building. I didn't go through the door and didn't see any signs of life, but the station was absolutely on the air and sounding great. Now we'll head over to the east of Manchester to Ashton-under-Lyne. Our first site is this former cotton spinning mill, the 139-year-old Cavendish Mill, now home to Tameside Community Radio on 103.6 FM. Tameside Radio launched on the 30th of September 2007, but its roots began in a station called 8 Towns Radio, originally known as Heartbeat Radio, which broadcast to the patients and staff at Tameside Hospital from 1983 to 1997. From October 1992, the station could be heard across the borough of Tameside in a series of 28-day trial broadcasts, firstly on medium wave and later on FM. These special limited period broadcasts helped to generate much needed funds to keep the hospital radio service on the air, and also gave Tameside its first taste of what a truly local licensed radio station could offer to listeners of all ages across the borough. The dream finally came true more than a decade later, and a full-time community station was eventually launched in 2007 when Timperley superstar Frank Sidebottom switched on 103.6 FM Tameside Radio on the market ground in Ashton-under-Lyne on Sunday the 30th of September in front of a packed crowd. Today the station has a variety of presenters and broadcasts a wide variety of music 24 hours a day from its studios in Cavendish Mill. First though, we need to head just over 3.2 miles to the southeast to the transmitter site. This is Harrop Edge, the summit of a peak in the borough of Tameside. The mid-morning heat created a lot of haze, but it didn't seem to affect this horse standing on Huff Hill admiring the views over a mile to the west. You can see the tower blocks over at Harper Hay almost 8 miles beyond too, and later in the series we'll be taking a visit there. The heat didn't affect these two half a mile away to the north, but Oldham Civic Centre, a site we'll visit later on today, was hard to make out. The 50-watt transmitter for Tameside Radio is located on the main tower at Harrop Edge. The transmit antenna, located around 8 metres above the ground, used to be a folded dipole, but in recent years it's been replaced with this. Antennas like this have been designed to achieve a circularly polarised radiation pattern and are ideal for low and medium powered FM radio transmitters. The panels next to the transmit antenna form the studio to transmitter link. Like Wythenshawe FM, we can see a similar dish. This one is a ubiquity light beam, and I believe it's operating in the 5 GHz band. As for the panel, I'm not certain what this is. It could be a backup or something else, and I'm sure somebody watching this will be able to help explain what it might be for. These both point towards Cavendish Mill, 3.2 miles away to the northwest, and as you've probably guessed if we head back over there, you can see the reciprocal ubiquity light beam dish and panel on the side of the mill. The chimney on the mill would have made an ideal transmitter location for the station, but Harrop Edge is in fact much higher, and as you can see, the coverage of Tameside Radio is quite impressive. Next to the STL antennas you can see a vertical dipole, which I'm guessing is for monitoring the output of the transmitter from the studio. As for the studio, I couldn't see anything to suggest the presence of Tameside Radio at the mill from the outside, and I didn't venture inside. But this is the home of the station, and with that, we'll move on to our next spot. We're over in Oldham now, to the north of the previous location, at the home of Oldham Community Radio on 99.7 FM. This is David McGeely. He passed away on Monday the 23rd of October 2023 at the age of 74, after many years serving as a passionate and distinguished community-driven broadcaster. Dave's contribution to community radio spans decades, becoming the president and chairman at Radio Cavell, the first Royal Oldham Hospital radio service in the 1970s, before setting his sights on launching a local community radio station in the 1990s. From 1994, Oldham Community Radio had broadcast a series of 9 short-term trial RSL broadcasts, which led to the successful application for a full-time broadcast licence. By March 2007, Dave brought Oldham Community Radio to life, and the station became one of the very first branches of community stations to be granted a licence. The station broadcasts a wide variety of programmes throughout the day for its Oldham-based listeners, although the 25-watt transmitter reaches far beyond Oldham's simulated coverage area. Oldham Community Radio is a not-for-profit organisation whose volunteers come from diverse backgrounds, ages and abilities, and freely give their time and talents on and off the air. They have running costs of tens of thousands of pounds a year to stay on the air, which need to be found by a mix of fundraising, grants and sponsorship from local businesses and organisations. Oldham Community Radio transmits from the top of Oldham Civic Centre, a 175-foot tall concrete behemoth that had its own Cold War nuclear bunker to protect senior councillors, council officers, police officers, engineers, doctors and communications experts in the event of a nuclear attack. Today the roof is bristling with antennas, and so it's anyone's guess which one belongs to Oldham Community Radio. The site sits 203 metres above sea level, and the antenna itself is 65 metres above the ground. Looking at all of these antennas, it's hard to determine which one is the OCR one, but I'm going to go for this one, a J-beam similar to those used by other community radio stations. I could be wrong, however, but this one seems to be the most likely. As for the studio to transmitter link, this was another less obvious one. There appears to be a few possibilities at first glance. Firstly, there's this awesome L-band shrouded Yagi, commonly used for STLs between 1 and 2 GHz. It's hidden down the side of the building and points roughly towards the direction of OCR's studio, but upon further investigation, I realised that this is actually pointing towards Oldham North Relay and is possibly used by JRC as part of the communications network used by the UK gas and electricity transmission and distribution companies. Another possibility is this small panel that points in the direction of the studio. You can see it's angled slightly downwards too. Moving over to the studio just 190 metres away from the transmitter site, and there's absolutely no sign of the reciprocal link pointing back towards the Civic Centre, so again I'm stumped. It may be really well hidden, or they may just use fibre now, I'm not sure. The studio had a nice tribute to Dave in the window, and the offices that occupy 3 units of the market hall were full of nice OCR signage. Now it's time to move closer to the city of Manchester and take a look at Heritage Community Radio in Whalley Range. The station originally held a licence to broadcast a community radio service on medium wave, which it surrendered when its FM service commenced on 90.6 in 2019. Heritage serves, not exclusively, but predominantly, the Muslim community in Manchester, particularly those living in the central area. The station produces programmes based on social, religious and cultural challenges facing communities, particularly Muslims, and encourages discussion and debate between the Muslim and wider non-Muslim communities. Key programming is delivered in English, with additional programming in ethnic languages relevant to the communities it serves. The studios are based here, at the stunning British Muslim Heritage Centre in Whalley Range. From the outside, I saw no evidence of a radio station here, and again didn't venture inside. I had a look around the rooftop looking for evidence of a studio to transmitter link, and after a while, and almost giving up, I found it. It's a microwave link. Like Tameside, it looks like a Ubiquity Lightbeam 5 GHz link in the turret of this tower that looks out towards the transmitter site. In fact, you can see the transmitter site over at Duffield Court, 1.4 miles away to the northeast. Moving over to Duffield Court, it's immediately clear which antenna is radiating Heritage Radio. It consists of what looks like a Lindenblad L-Blad 600 array of 45 degree slanted band 2 dipoles. They're commonly used in FM radio setups and can radiate up to 600 watts. Each section is fed in phase from a machine-powered splitter to achieve an omnidirectional mixed polarization array. Of course, also mounted on the pole is the reciprocal studio to transmitter link dish that points back towards the Muslim Heritage Centre. And with that, I'll leave you here in Whalley Range, but if you enjoyed this video, then meet me in rural Cheshire next time as we look at another set of community radio stations.